Okay, I think this is our final video on this project. So, I have noticed in my real classes, as opposed to Unreal, virtual, that there's a number of people that are having problems with, you know, this part of the project, with getting these little lines in and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you another option. Maybe it's a little late, but I'm going to give you another option. Here, I'm going to soften the edges on that. That came out rather nice. Sometimes I have to warm up. I didn't warm up today. So some of this, see, some of this could go solid. Like that. All right, but I was going to give you another option. And that's simply graduating to a larger brush. Oh no, this is a 10 probably. I think it's a 10. Okay, which is a size that a lot of you have. And I'm going to load the brush up. I'm going to rake it off. Just like with the other. Maybe rake off just a little more because the body of this brush holds a lot more paint. But here's the thing. You could, look at the shapes I'm making here. See that? Okay, now immediately you've got, because you don't want that on your painting, immediately you've got to get to it and soften those edges. And see, I'm washing my brush out again. So I've got a more solid coverage here with a little bit of lines. You could do that. You could also do that and then come back with finer lines on top of it when it was dry. Just do a little of this into it while it's wet there. If it's not too wet, see where the lines will hold a little bit. That's an option there. Particularly if you just get sick and tired of doing the little lines. But a few little lines like this on top of this would be really good. I have someone who did a deeper, richer painting with more of the coral on the flower, which I photographed with my phone, and I thought I could, if I could make it work on my phone, I could send that out and get that to you, just as so you could see another option there, because it was really pretty. I really liked it. Now let's go on to other steps. So I have lifted my masking, and you can see right there, this doesn't stand out much. But right here, oh my goodness, that's terrible, isn't it? Well, what we're going to do, let's just take some of the colors we've already got. Here we've got, this is the cad yellow, but you could use that or the new gamboge with some quin coral and a little bit of phthalo green. I think I got a little bit of phthalo green right there. Yeah, that's phthalo green. You don't want much of that. Let's see. Let's see how that does. Oh, maybe a little more phthalo green. I'm getting to where I use more and more of that stuff. Okay. So I've got kind of a warm gray, whatever. I don't know. That really has too much yellow in it. Let's put a little more. Let's put a little more red in it. Okay, let's go with, well, maybe a little more green. See, I can't make up my mind. And the thing is, you're just adjusting and using your own judgment. And it turns out that a lot of things will work. Well, here at the base, we really don't want that to stand out that much at the base. These stamens, though, were red on top of that green. So I was going to do that. But I do want that grayed down a lot. I want it to get really soft there at the base. So what I'm going to do, let's start out with this stuff. Okay. And then let's pull it out and fade it to, well, let's do that because that's almost the color that's right here. It's kind of a beigey. A little more water. Let's fade this before it starts to dry. So it's darker at the bottom, and then it just goes that kind of creamy beige. Creamy, peachy beige. Okay, that might be my first step on that. On this up here, I'm going to treat this totally differently in that, let's see, let me move this. Let's use this. In that, I'm going to make these stamens stand out just a little bit more. But you will notice right here, they really don't. And in some cases, they're actually darker than the flower. I'm going to go ahead and make them lighter because, well, it's easier for one thing. So I might get a little area in here, a little deeper. And by the way, this had a nice light halo there, and I've lost that halo. But I don't think I'm going to miss it at all. I think this is going to look really good. So this is a small place, and so I don't need a whole lot of extra water on my brush. Let's dampen the edges there. And then dampen the edges of the new edges. Okay, so it comes up like this. And I'm going to keep it off of these little white ends that I'm going to leave really light. Let's see that line. I should do something a little more there. There's actually another stamen there, and I painted that on top of it. It'll work, though. There we go. So the thing is, the stamens don't have to stand out the whole way. Oh dear, they got a spot on there. Okay, there, I'll go with that. But if I have one area where they stand out a little bit, then your brain will fill in the differences. Now, I'm going to show you where and then we're going to come back and work on these some more after that's dry. And here, we need to do a little bit there too. I'm going to use some more of that mixture. I don't really quite like that mixture, but it'll do. And I'm going to put a little more color right in here because, again, I don't really want to make it stand out there at the base. There. Now, I'm probably not going to do a lot more of these. I might do a little bit. Now, I was going to show you where we're going next. This might be a bit of a shock. Here's one that I've got started. And whoo, look at that color. Well, the thing is, I'm real happy with this. What I'm striving for here, and this wasn't quite the way I planned it, but it's close. What I'm striving for here is to have some texture, but not to have too much. Remember, that has to do with the value of the texture. The difference between the darkest area and the lightest area is not really great. So the texture doesn't stand out too much. I even threw a little bit of blues in here, which I don't know. And I threw in some water drips and stuff, and it's a little, I think I'm going to like it. We're going to put a shadow in here in a little bit. But now we're going to go back to this one and do this to it first. Maybe a little more successfully this time. Okay. So what I really like about this color is you've got some pink tones and some orange tones. And the pink and the orange kind of halate. It's a thing that makes your brain vibrate a little extra. Well, it just so happened that when I saw another artist doing this on hers in class, I saw that, and this really just looked so good, the color with the flowers, that I said, oh, well, that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll pretend that I thought it up, but I'm really telling the truth. That's Sandra Baker that lives in Cleburne that did that. I've got splatters up there. That doesn't matter to me at all. In fact, right here you can see where I glazed a little bit of Quinn Coral right there. So I'm going to have to do it in a couple of other places too to make that work. All right. So the only thing about this is I've got Quinn Coral out here, and I've got New Gamboge, which is a little bit contaminated with some Quinn Coral. It's not contaminated enough because I want an orange. So let's just pull a little more of this coral over here. Make this just a little bit orangier. Maybe that's enough. They'll begin to blend together when I put this down. If you would feel safer with this, you could pre-wet this. I don't have my biggest brush. I'll just use this. This is a 3/4 inch. I'm just going to do it on dry paper. So I'll start over here. Since I'm right-handed, I should have started on this side, but, well, that didn't happen. Okay. So the thing is, I'm putting down very juicy paint, but it's still pretty strong. And I might want right here to go ahead and keep it red there, because I think, let's see, can y'all see this glass? Yeah. I think I'm going to add water and pull it up into this background a little bit. Oops. I can't quite do that. I'm going to have to move that. Now let's go over and let's pick up some of the orange. Okay. And you could use a smaller brush here. In fact, I think I will. I think I'll use a pointy brush. Oh, that looks like pretty strong color. That looks a little stronger than the last one. I may like that though. Let's get a little bit thinner. Just maybe a little bit lighter. Wash the brush out. And so there's still some water in the brush, which is great because it's thinning my color a little bit, which is a little bit strong. I'd rather start out with the color too strong than too weak, because I can always weaken it, but it's a lot more trouble to get it stronger. Okay, so what happens is, and this is the reason that I decided to do the flower in just the coral without putting yellow in here to make it, you know, a little peachier, is because of the contrast between that pink and this color. Which was after I saw what Sandy had done. So I'm working it over this way, and I'm keeping it wet. I do have a few sparkles in here. Let's see. I can just barely see where my line was here on this flower. But if I messed it up, I don't think anyone would have a clue. I could have come in with a brush with a better point and made that a little nicer. I could have, but I didn't. And the world will not stop turning. Oh, I bet my brush is in the way. Okay, so you see these, it looks like red and orange right now. I'm hoping that this will look more pinkish here in a little bit. As this starts to dry on this side, I'm going to splatter into it. But I'm going to keep working in this direction. Because I really want that thinned out enough that it feels pink. I wonder if I need to add a little water in there. Now, this is a little soon to get back runs, which is really what I wanted. But the thing is, I really want this red area to not look red. Of course, it looks darker wet. But I really want it to have a pink glow to it. See, really juicy wet. Let's turn this way so I can pull some water up this way. And you know, this is where it's nice to have it on a board or something. You could tilt it. Or you could just not tilt it. It's 300-pound paper, so you don't really have to have a board. But if you were working with a board, see, I could just turn this different ways and lay it down and not be concerned about it. All right. Okay, I think that's beginning to do what I wanted. Yeah. I don't want to smooth the edges on this flower out. I want the flower shapes in here because that just reads a whole lot better, in my opinion. Be careful and don't drip paint on your painting as you're working. And I'm just randomly throwing in some orange here and there. I didn't have a plan. You might have a plan. It's okay to have a plan. I just like to start doing it and see how I feel about it as I work along. See, this may be interesting here. So I think I'm going to pull up. Well, it doesn't matter because we're going to put a shadow in here. This area gets a shadow. So then you have to just spend a little bit of time with it, talking to it, telling it what you want, and maybe throwing some splatters in. I think what I will do is what I did with the last one. I don't know that it was really successful, but I'm kind of inclined to do it anyway, if that makes any sense at all. Just pick up a little bit of, where'd it go? Oh, here it is, cerulean. Whoa, whoa, whoa. My cerulean's really strong over here. I pre-wet it. I want it just really thin, just almost dirty water. Whoa, I don't want it on the flower. And I sure don't want this looking like polka dots here. I love polka dots, but I don't want them here. So maybe while that's drying, I'll pick up a little bit more of the coral and put a little, whoops, that's too much, glaze a little bit of coral on top of some of these areas that are closer in to down here. All I want is just for that to kind of softly merge in some way. Just little bits, and I'm gonna, oh, that's enough there. That may be too much right here. It's just, whoops, took up too much. Just put down a touch. Now this area is already wet, so it'll spread itself pretty nicely. Over here we have a strange thing happening. So let's put some paint on the edge there. If I did that too fast, it's a great thing about a video. You can just back it up, right? That just seems a little bit loud. Right in here, I like that. But this, oh, here's the brush. And I'm just going to add in a little more water. This is still so wet that I probably am not going to get any back runs. I would be perfectly happy with some back runs. I'm actually squeezing my brush out and pulling up just a little bit of paint. See, you can adjust things. I know people feel like you put watercolor down and that's the end of it. But if you're working really wet, okay, I think when this is dry, that it's going to be pretty nice. And I'm going to pull some shading up here on this. Maybe I'll go ahead and do that now. You could let this dry and then just add this, because that is so wet out there that I may try to run in a little too much. So I washed my brush out. I'm going to soften that edge. Whoa. See? Got kind of lost the situation. Now, if I had a board here, which I have boards here, I could have done this, but I never think of it. This would be easier to handle. Oh, there. That may actually be better that way than it was before I messed it up. Let's just pull a little more of this up over here then. See that? I can just nudge that while it's shiny. While it's still shiny, you can do things like that. Oh, look. I've got paint running down this way, which is making this lighter, which I like. I don't know that I wanted vertical streaks. I got vertical streaks in the other one too. But see, I'm getting rid of some extra color there. The other thing you could do is, if you don't want vertical streaks, you could do this. As long as it doesn't run where you don't want it to. Now this is no longer all that wet, so it's really not running anymore. I think I got rid of most of the excess when I turned it this way. I don't know how this is working on the screen. This is probably very hard to watch. Okay, see it right here? Okay. So now we're going to pause while this dries. You know, this is almost dry. It's not quite. I thought I just want a little more excitement in here. I'm going to come in, and some places may be too dry. But I wouldn't mind having some back runs in here. I don't like that hard edge there, but this isn't the time to work with that. I'll just put a little more color down here because it's not going to back run. So I'll just make a thing there. Okay. There. I think that's going to suit me a lot better. Again, we'll see when it dries. Okay, this is pretty fun. So one place I want to point out to you, though, you can see where I got this extra wet. You see that little dark line around the flower? Now, sometimes you might actually want to make that happen. Most of the time you don't. So the problem is now I've got that dark edge around there. I've got a dark edge over here too, but there's going to be shadow, so it's not as important. Actually, there's shadow over here too. There's shadow everywhere. I don't know how that works. Okay, but anyway, we're going to get rid of that. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to, this is dry now. And I'm going to take clean water, and I'm going to, with a flat brush, not around, because you don't want to damage the point. Let's see if we can just coax some of this up. So where it's extra heavy, extra dark there, that will tend to come up first. Because it's a higher layer. So we took some of the higher layers off. I didn't get it there, but I got quite a bit off. So in a minute, I may have to take that to the dryer. But let's work on, oh dear. Oh, here it is. Let's work on this stamen here. And one of the things I want to do, okay, you can see that this is it showing up? Yeah. You can see that that is pretty dark coral in there. Let's get it. I'll get some here that's dry, partially dry there. So I've got a little bit stronger mixture. Now, I don't want this to stand out too much. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. That just stands out a whole lot, doesn't it? Well, we're going to have to fix that. We can't have that. That looks like red and green on a Christmas tree, doesn't it? Okay, well, let's just take a little bit of phthalo green and put down here at the base. Woo! That'll take the life out of it. Okay, so I'm getting the extra water off my brush. And I'm just going to coax this up this way. And fade it out. I think I'll pull it back the other way. See, like that? Okay. That looks a little better. That might not be too bad. There's a little bit of green in these. Let's see, I've got a little bit of phthalo green right there. There's a little bit of green in these, like, I think that's a spot between the stems. Oops, that was wet. This has just got a little division in it. I don't know, it's just a little stuff. Here, I'll make a little shadow there. What that is, I don't know. I don't really care. You just need a tiny bit of busyness in there. Okay, I've got to hurry because of the, I'm going to run out of video time here. You know, you could doctor up these things a little more. I decided that I liked a little bit richer color in these after seeing another friend's painting that she did in that Friday class, Dorothy. So I'm just going to pull a little bit of more pure color up in here with a bigger brush. Actually, I could have done that with a smaller brush, but the point is that I'm going to pump a little bit more of the coral into the flower because I liked it on Dorothy. See, I steal from y'all all the time. Now they're trying to get me to pay them. Okay. So let's pull this up this way, because this is very juicy paint I put down. So that means I had a little bit of time here. It didn't just suck up and dry immediately. Yeah, I kind of like that. I left a little edge there intentionally. I think I'll do a little more. So I'm just plopping some color down. Look at that. I am thinking lines a little bit. See, they're there just a little bit. But this is in shadow and the lines don't show up as much. And I've already got some pretty strong lines in it, parts of it. I might leave, see those little light spots? I might just thin those up and leave them as like little thin light lines. Okay, I like that. You know, you have to make your flower suit you. And I know some of you are thinking what would really suit me was if I wasn't doing another damn flower. Well, next we're doing people, so I think you'll like that. Okay. I might need a little more color here on the outside of this, and I might want to do that with a smaller brush. I'm just going to work on this one because of the time factor. But I'm just going to put a little bit stronger color in here. Okay, and then wet brush. Get a little of the water out of it. I think that's a little too wet. Take a little more out. Well, I think that's a little too dark. I'll squeeze the brush out and I'll pull up a little bit of this color. See how you can just keep manipulating and changing as long as you're working with really wet paint. If your paint's not wet enough, you run out of options. I know a lot of people feel like working wet is when they don't have control, but actually you have more control once you know what to do with your paint. Let's put a little more color right in this spot. You know, this has two things going on with it. There's local color, that's the color that's on the flower, and then there's the shading because some places are darker than others. And so sometimes it's hard to know which is which. It's just something you learn to do. Okay, that soaked up a little bit. So the thinner, the smaller, thinner line dries faster. Okay, but you can see what's happening here. So, and I should be looking at my photo. And remember, some of these lines can also help show the shape of the flower. See these little, because it makes little contour lines. Now, I've got to quickly get back with this because I covered a lot of area. You might not want to cover that much area because look, those aren't bleeding very well. I'm going to actually have to come in with a little more color to disguise that because it's just too strong of a line. Because I tried to cover too much area before I came back with water. Remember, the smaller the line, or the smaller the area, the faster it'll dry. Okay. We'll live with that for now. You get the idea. All right. On to bigger and better and more important things. Okay, this is dried some, and what happened was when I put the green in, it pushed the red to the edges. I'm going to come back, and I am working kind of dry here now because I'm just barely scumbling a little color right on top of things. I'm not really getting it wet and working with it or anything because it's dark and what I did isn't going to show up that much. So see, now I've got that little dark thing there. I could make this a little redder, a little further up. It is in the photo. Depends how you feel about it. I wasn't that thrilled with the idea that that was red there. Oh, all right. So I'm not really going to do this part because we're running out of time. But you get the idea where I'm coming back in and making some things richer, using a bigger brush where I want to. You can see what I did with the stamens. Now, take a little bit more phthalo green here. Oops, there's some phthalo green. Okay, and let's just patch a spot or two here. Yeah, that might be enough. Little things like that. You can see where I pulled the color up in here. Now we need shadows. Okay, so let's start out our basis for the shadows. Our main color that we used the coral again. So I'm going to put coral over here. Well, let's get quite a bit of coral. There's some coral. I could use a little bit of the yellow. And then what else are we working with today? Well, we were working with a mixture of phthalo green and... here's some. Phthalo green and ultramarine. You can hardly tell what those are. They're so dark. But we were working with some of that. So the phthalo green keeps things pretty bright. The ultramarine gets it a little darker. So let's just start out with just a little of this and put it in here. Start out with a little bit of the blue and put it in here and see what we've got. Oh, I think that just about did it, but let me illustrate again. See, I just picked up a little bit of color. Whoa. Okay. So, this might not be dark enough, but the thing is to test it out before it gets too dark. You don't want it to kill too much of the red because if you do, it won't look like a shadow anymore. It'll look like a different kind of shape there. Okay. So we've got this color, which I think is about right. And I'm looking at the photo. I guess this is dry enough. I can set this down here. Well, the first major shape is right here. Let's see how that's going to look. Make sure you mix up enough. Okay. My mixture might be a little thin, so I'm really having to put it on really, really wet to get enough coverage. Okay. And is this going to be carpet here? Well, this isn't. So the thing is, I'm not trying to express little bumpy things like is on the pile of the carpet. again, see where I'm putting this shadow along here? I'm going to have to pull some shadow up into there too. But I think I'm going to wait and do it later. All right, so I'm just going to make it, that's going to be my shadow shape, I think. Over here, we got more shadow shape. Let's get the little brush. I'm getting extra water out of my little brush because this paint's about the right consistency right now. I don't want to thin it out with more water. This area right here is not really quite as deep of a shadow, so I think I will weaken that some in a minute. Let's pull that up into that background. Okay, I'm going to squeeze this out and I'm going to suck a little bit of color up right here. See how that just, look how that got lighter like that. Isn't that nice? Okay. Then we're going to get darker again back over in here. And we'll just do something like that. This sets it down on a surface. I started saying on the ground. On a surface. So it's not floating. One of the first paintings I ever did is a portrait of a little boy, grandson, on a skateboard, sitting on a skateboard. He was just like a year and a half old, year old. And so he's sitting on the skateboard. And I brought in and showed it to some ladies that were experienced painters, and they said he's floating. And I didn't even know what they were talking about. They said, you got to have a shadow under him. Oh, gee, a shadow. I never thought of that. Yeah, I guess it does look kind of funny. Okay, so here, let's put some more shadow in over here. I'm going to bring that shadow down from what's in the photo, just because I want it to show up on this surface. And I don't know what kind of edge that is. It's not like carpet exactly, but I didn't really get away from carpet either, did I? There. Now, while you've got this mixture, do you have other places that need a little more definition? Either with more coral, but maybe with coral that's, maybe with coral here that's got just a little bit of this other stuff in it. Just make it a little bit deeper to make a shadow stand out, or make one petal come behind another petal. See, like that. So this isn't finished by any means. It's nearly finished, but it needs a few little things. Okay, right here. This, actually on this one, this petal is darker than that one. And you could do it either way. But let's just make this a little stronger right here. And we'll fade it one way. Fade it another way. There we go. Now, those are going to make funny edges. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze my brush out. Oh, that too squeezed it out too much. Let's see. I need just enough water on there to blend this out. This is blending pretty well. And the other thing is, remember, you can always take that brush and pull color back the other way too. Okay. So that's a major technique for how to work with that. I could use a little bit of this deeper color right there where it's really a little bit of a shadow from this petal on top of this petal. And I could exaggerate that. Remember, you're designing this flower. This is your flower. I think you need to take a lot of cues from the actual flower here. Let's just make that a little pointier. That'll look better. See, here's one stamen behind the other one. And maybe a little bit of shadow back here behind, you know, on the stem thing. Oops. You could put stripes on this or whatever. There's stripes in the picture. I don't care. All right, so this is sitting on the ground. I think it looks pretty good. You know, wouldn't mind having just a little bit more shadow right here. I thought the light was coming more from that direction, and that there ought to be more shadow here, but there's not in the photo. But you know what? That doesn't mean that I can't have it. I can make it do whatever I want. This is my world. Oh my gosh, that's a Bob Ross phrase. Okay, well, actually, I got enough paint here. Maybe I'll just cast that shadow on off over here. Who knows? Now, one last little thing. Right here, we might need just a tiny bit more color. Just barely over the edge here. So then I'm going to take most of the extra water off the brush and just pull it out ever so carefully. Just barely touching the edge of that with just the tiniest bit of water. This is just a matter of learning to judge these things, and that takes a little bit of experience. I've really got a dark line there that I don't like, but I'm not going to try to do anything about it. It's mostly the pencil line that I never got rid of. I could take a little bit of white ink over that later if I wanted to. So, I don't know about this foreground. It might need a little more done to it. It just looks a little too something. I don't know what. You'll figure something better out, okay? So, there's the painting, okay? And that's the end. Bye.